The United Kingdom has voted to leave the European Union. With almost all the results now in, the Leave campaign has secured an unassailable lead with 52% of the vote compared to 48% for the Remain camp. It sent shockwaves across the markets. The pound dropped to a 30-year low as the markets reacted to this surprise result. The turnout was the highest in a nationwide UK election for almost 20 years, almost 72%. And it's the Leave backers who have turned out in higher numbers than the Remain supporters. The result leaves the United Kingdom profoundly divided. London, Scotland, Northern Ireland and some major English cities voted in favour of remaining in the EU. However, vast swathes of England and Wales voted decisively to leave. Major cities such as Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, they backed EU membership, but this was outweighed by overwhelming support in rural areas and smaller English and Welsh towns for a Brexit or a vote to leave the European Union. All eyes are now on David Cameron, the Prime Minister, who's expected to put in an set the official wheels rolling for Britain's exit. These are the early editions now of the newspapers. The result became more and more clear during the night as each count was announced, consistently giving the out vote a higher score than the Remain vote across the country, certainly in England and Wales. And although there was some results coming in Scotland and in bigger cities for Remain, this is the result, Brexit for Britain, with a picture there of the triumphant leader of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage. And he arguably has been at the outset of all this. There were Eurosceptic voices in the Conservative Party, but he, back in the 90s, was one of the founder members of the UK Independence Party, and it went from strength to strength, particularly in the 2000s, after enlargement of the European Union in 2004, which led to thousands and thousands of workers coming to Britain from Central and Eastern Europe. And Farage became leader of UKIP in 2006. And the resulting pressure and the dissent within the Conservative ranks pushed the Conservatives into a more and more Eurosceptic position. And even though David Cameron won the election, certainly with a coalition with the Liberal Democrats from 2010 onwards, and then in his own right over the last year, he's faced untenable pressure, and 3 years ago promised this referendum. And despite his renegotiated deal, it simply wasn't enough to convince the voters. These are the scenes outside the Houses of Parliament. 10 Downing Street is not far away. So far we've heard no word from Cameron, but a good number of senior vote leave figures have publicly said that they expect him to stay on to see this through. Although obviously this is a huge personal disappointment for him. It's a gamble that hasn't come off, and he will now go down in history as the Prime Minister who set in motion Britain's departure from the European Union. It's always been a love-hate relationship with the EU. Increasingly since Britain's membership. It joined way back in 1973, the original common market, the European Economic Community. There were just 9 members at that stage, but it's grown and grown, and over the last 20 years consistently the moves have gone against really the British view of Europe, particularly the Maastricht Treaty back in the 1990s. Although it has to be said, Britain was a firm supporter of enlargement, of opening up the EU to the former communist countries of Central and Eastern Europe. But in the end, it was the consequences of that move, and particularly the flood of workers who came to the UK, changing the face of the country in many parts of the country, contributing to the economy, but at the same time, in the eyes of many, putting pressure on jobs and houses and services, and leading to a feeling that Britain had lost control of its own borders, and indeed it was the phrase "take back control" that really has won the day, with prominent campaigners like Michael Gove and above all Boris Johnson obviously finding a message that echoed across England, although there are big question marks now about the effect beyond England to the other parts of the United Kingdom, particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland. We heard little really from English voters during the campaign about the effect, knock-on effect on the rest of the United Kingdom and perhaps in Europe. But those are questions that will be dealt with in the coming weeks and months. But as the counts came in overnight, it became clearer and clearer that Leave was looking in a stronger and stronger position. Consistently, they were...
As Chief Counting Officer for the referendum on the UK's membership of the European Union,
this is the official announcement.
On the 23rd of June 2016, I hereby give notice that I have certified the following. The total number of ballot papers counted was 33,577,342. The total number of votes cast in favour of Remain was 16,141,241. The total number of votes cast in favour of Leave was 17,410,742. The number of ballot papers rejected was as follows: no official mark, 232. Both answers voted for, 9,084. Writing or mark by which the voter could be identified, 836. Unmarked or void for uncertainty, 15,207. The total number of ballot papers rejected was 25,359. This means that the UK has voted to leave the European Union. I would like to thank once more the counting officers and election staff, the regional counting officers, the Chief Electoral Officer for Northern Ireland, the Clerk to the Gibraltar Parliament, electoral registration officers, the Royal Mail and Manchester City Council. I would also like to thank all of the Electoral Commission staff, past and present, and particularly the Deputy Chief Counting Officer.
Well, that was the official declaration of the official result from Manchester. This is live now.
The sun has risen on an independent, united kingdom. And just look at it, even the weather's improved. It's been a hell of a long journey, this. I first got involved in Eurosceptic politics 25 years ago, and the first election I contested, I managed to beat the late great Screaming Lord Sutch by 164 votes, so I didn't come last. And now there are 17 million people that voted for Brexit. It's a victory for ordinary people, decent people. It's a victory against the big merchant banks, against the big businesses, and against big politics. And I'm proud of everybody that had the courage, in the face of all the threats, everything they were told, they had the guts to stand up and do the right thing. The election was won, in my view, in the Midlands of the North, and I think it was the old Labour vote that came to us, and we, particularly as a party, campaigned as hard as we could in those areas. There is still a massive disconnect between Westminster, FW1 and real communities, and the one image I will remember throughout the rest of my life was a woman in Bolton grabbing my hand with tears in her eyes, saying, why doesn't David Cameron, why doesn't the government come and see what they've done to my community, what they've done to the prospects for my kids? People here don't understand. They're too wealthy. They don't get what open door mass immigration as a result of EU membership has done to people's wages, to people's availability of getting GP appointments or their kids into local schools. This was the issue ultimately that won this election. So I'm thrilled we've done this. I believe the other big effect of this election is not what's happened in Britain, but what will happen in the rest of Europe. I mean, in the rest of the EU, Eurosceptic parties never talked about leaving the EU, now they are. An opinion poll in the Netherlands says the majority there now wants to leave. So we may well be close, perhaps, to Brexit. And similarly in Denmark, the majority there are in favour of leaving, so we could be quite close to Brexit. And I'm told the same may apply to Sweden, and perhaps Austria, and perhaps even Italy too. The EU's failing, the EU's dying. I hope we've knocked the first brick out of the wall. I hope this is the first step towards a Europe of sovereign nation states, trading together, neighbours together, friends together, but without flags, anthems, or useless old unelected presidents. So what happens now? What happens next? Well, 17 million people have said we must leave the European Union. We now need a Brexit government. A government that gets on with the job. A government that begins the renegotiation of our trade relationship. A government that will be mindful that already many of the German car manufacturing unions have said, let's get on and do a deal. Let's go on buying, selling motor cars and wine and cheese with each other. But a government also that at the same time uses the opportunity of Brexit. And the opportunity is we're now free to start making our own trade deals and associations with the rest of the world. We've left behind, with this result, we've left behind a failing political union. We've given ourselves the chance to rejoin the world in a 21st century global economy. So we need, as I say, a Brexit government. We need the negotiations to start as soon as humanly possible. We need to start thinking globally about our future. And the other thing I think that needs to happen is that June the 23rd needs to become a national bank holiday, and we will call it Independence Day.
Martin Schulz, join a Brexit government? You want to join a Brexit government?
Go on, Crick. Come on, Cricky.
You want to join a Brexit government?
Well, there we are. That was live. Nigel Farage, and here he is on the front pages this morning. Brexit for Britain. He's celebrating the achievement of his overriding goal in his political career to get Britain out of the EU, and now it's set to become a reality. He's called it a victory for ordinary people.